Welcome to the Feisworld podcast, engaging conversations that cross the boundaries between business, art, and the digital world.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Feisworld podcast, and I am your host, Fei Wu. Please welcome Nate Delong to the Feisworld podcast. Nate competed at the 2014 World Muay Thai Federation Championship on Team USA and took gold medal for the Pro-Am, which is Pro-Amateur Heavyweight Division. Wikipedia states that Muay Thai is a combat sport of Thailand that uses stand-up striking along with various clinching techniques. It is characterized by the combined use of fists, elbows, knees, shins being associated with a good physical preparation that makes a full contact fighter very efficient. Like many of us, Nate has a full-time job. He's a producer at SapientNitro, an advertising agency based in Boston, Massachusetts. In this episode, you will learn about how Nate was able to balance work and his lifelong goal to compete on the international stage. I would like to thank Matt Lindley very much for introducing Nate to this podcast. Matt is my hero and a wonderful guest who appeared on a previous episode of the Feisworld podcast. If you have listened to some of my previous episodes, it is no secret that I'm a dedicated martial arts practitioner as well, so the desire to interview someone like Nate is obvious. But why should you care? And how does interview benefit you in any way? Ironically, much of the learning as a martial artist can apply to regular office jobs. Not the fight, of course, but the strategies that help you improve your interpersonal skills, reading and understanding your clients, managers, peers, even at interviews. What and how can you learn about the person you're speaking to quickly and respond effectively? So here are some examples of the questions I asked Nate. How did Nate prepare himself for the World Championship in Thailand? In just 3 months, how did he peak his performance and condition himself to be in the best competition shape ever? What type of fighter is Nate? And what is competition philosophy? How does Nate study his opponent prior and during the competitions? How did Nate overcome fear, pressure, and other mental challenges during practice and then on stage? Last but not least, what are the counterintuitive learnings that significantly improved Nate's ability to win? Without further ado, I would like to welcome Nate to the Feisworld podcast. You don't have to take notes furiously. Remember that the show notes, the stories, all the tools and resources are on my website at feisworld.com. Feisworld. If you enjoyed this episode, I welcome that you check out the other episodes on the Feisworld podcast as well. And I would mega appreciate that you would consider writing a review for my podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. Please welcome Nate Delong.
Don't waste yourself. Watch your style.
So, welcome to the Feisworld podcast, Nate.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited because I feel like I don't really know all that much about you just yet. So I'm actually learning about you as we go along.
Cool.
During this podcast. So if I may recall, we met during last year's the event Friends for Boston Homeless. Mm-hmm. And it was sponsored by Matt Lindley, along with a number of other board directors there. And he pointed you to me. I remember we're on the second floor, and I was stuffing my face with, Rancatory ice cream. And he said, that guy, you got to talk to that guy. And he competed in Muay Thai and represented the country. And there you go. So I would love to hear that story from you. So what was this recent competition and win that you just had?
Well, I guess it's not that recent. It was last March. I got invited to fight for Team USA in the World Muay Thai Federation Championships in Thailand. which was like a crazy experience, a crazy opportunity. And I went over there with the expectation that I might do okay. I just really wanted to kind of see where I stood as a fighter, and I ended up winning the Pro-Am tournament for 91 kilograms. That's the heavyweight division. And it was crazy. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to happen. It happened, and I don't know. It's just been a wild ride.
How long did you train for that competition?
Well, I was training kind of just my regular practice routine, and I made the decision to go. I got the invite maybe in last November, and then I officially accepted it January 1st. So I was training every day or twice a day from January 1st until we left March 12th or March 8th to go to Thailand. So just about 3 months.
What was that training twice a day like? I mean, just give us a sense. You have a full-time job, which we're going to review pretty quickly.
Yeah. The training, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it. A two-a-day session might be start at 6 a.m. and do, a couple mile run, 5 rounds jump rope, 5 rounds on the bag, 5 rounds hitting pads, 5 round clinching, 5 round sparring, go to work, finish work, go back to the gym and do the same thing. I ran a lot of stairs, Harvard Stadium steps, and Summit Avenue Hill.
Wow.
So, and it was cold.
Oh, man, I forgot about that. We're in Boston.
And the craziest thing about it was I got myself in what I thought was world-class competition shape. And then I got to Bangkok, and everyone was equal. And so once I was in Thailand, I had to step it up again another level, which was very physically challenging, but very rewarding at the same time.
So I want to go back even before the what do you call that? Would be the U.S. team training. Before January, what was your regular training like compared to your competition training?
Well, I train for fun. I live like a mile from the Y Crew gym in Alston. I've been fighting for them for, I guess, almost 6 years. So I've had different roles there. I've worked there. I've fought there. I've trained there. So regular training, anything from once a week just for fun to 4 times a week to kind of stay in better shape. So it just kind of like would show up and just kind of get loose, learn some new techniques or work on sparring and stuff. And I don't know. So it was kind of just like a regular, like you might just call it like how other people just go to the gym to lift weights or just go to the gym to spar just for fun. But then once it stepped up, it was a lifestyle change.
Yeah. Speaking of stepping up, what was that defining moment? What was that knob that you turned to say that, hey, maybe I should step up? Did you make that judgment on your own, or did your coach approach you?
The coach of Team USA is Crew Mark Nardone. He's one of the highest ranked Muay Thai authorities in the United States. And he had spoken to me and said that he expected that I would do well in the amateur and the Pro-Am tournament and maybe the pro tournament if I chose. And that was a vote of confidence. And then as I started training I won an American title a couple years ago. And I knew what that required, and I knew that I wanted to be in at least as good shape as that. And so as I started to undergo the training, you kind of get to these points mentally where you say, all right, I'm now equal to what I did before. I know this is good enough to win a title. And then you kind of hear this other voice that's kind of like, yeah, well, you're going to the World Championships. Maybe you should keep pushing. So I would keep pushing. I did a lot of my training by myself, like running stairs at night. And so it's really just you against the voice in your head. And I just kept saying, like, you're representing the country. You need to be the best possible fighter that you can be. And I don't know, I just felt so much pressure that I was pushing. But I guess it turned out to be good motivation.
It's interesting that you brought up personal training, and in this case, training on your own. I remember, to quickly invoke the fact that one of the reasons I'm so interested in interviewing you is I myself have been training in Taekwondo, which is a Korean form of martial art, for the past 12, 13 years. And growing up, I did Kung Fu, a bunch of different styles. I never competed at your level. And a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed my own instructor, Mr. Michael O'Malley, who is a Lifetime Achievement Award and also in the Taekwondo Hall of Fame. We talk about training a lot. I mean, martial art as a topic is the theme in my life. It's come up every day, multiple times a day, and I'm so glad that we could probably talk all day long.
All day.
And I'm so curious about training on your own and to strike for that balance. And it's so tough because when I speak with professional athletes and they say, when you train yourself, you go to two extremes. You either train way too hard or not hard enough. So how do you go about that individualized program for yourself?
Well, a lot of the stuff I do by myself is purely cardiovascular training. So when doing technique and doing, working with a partner, that's much less of a mental exercise because you're with your teammates and they're pushing you. But then there's a certain level of road work. You have to run long distances a few times a week. You have to do short burst cardio on stairs and hills. And that's where you really have to hold yourself accountable. There's some people talk about an 80% theory, which is instead of going as hard as you can every day, go 80% every day, and you won't burn yourself out. I never have the problem of going too extreme. I don't know. I don't know where the balance is. I just know that if I don't do it, I'm gonna get punched in the face or take a knee to the face. So anytime I get tired, I say, well, I'm not really tired. You can always go more. So it's just sort of like the accountability. I'm not afraid that I'm going to lose. I'm afraid that I'm going to get hurt. So it's much easier motivation,
When you hit the wall, like runners hit the wall, I think in our training, even at work, we all hit the wall. So how do you motivate yourself to keep it going? And I find that to be so fascinating because as much as this is a physical sport, it's really much more so of a mental game. Yeah. You have to play during training and more in the competition.
Yeah. Hitting the wall. I never really... I get physically fatigued because running stairs is like hard on the legs and stuff. And, you get banged up in sparring and everything. But mentally, if the fight's on the calendar... I never hit a mental wall because I know that if I do, I'm going to pay for it. So it's more like when I get to the physical point, letting yourself take a day off when you need it and to recover is really important. That's probably a lesson that's harder to learn for me is I would always say, well, I don't want to take a day off because I don't want to fall behind. But eventually your body says you need to rest, so just listen to yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I think the word is train mindfully, know your body. Exactly. Because you have to pay for injuries too if that happens, and especially closer to the competition that you don't have time to recover from. So I was wondering, I actually watched some of the YouTube videos that you had, and it's really fascinating because in my eyes, trying to analyze your movements as a martial artist, clearly, I think you're, as a heavyweight, even though heavyweight isn't all that heavy in the martial art world, what are some of your signature moves or kicks? Again, not to give it away. No, you're still competing. You don't want to give away your trade secrets.
Well, no, I don't. I don't have a big secret. I have kind of a few things I've built my game around. I love just this Muay Thai simple round kick, right leg. That's been my bread and butter. I've been able to, kick powerfully for my weight class.
Saw that coming. I said that right.
Yeah, that's so it's what I'm known for, I guess. My boxing has caught up lately, so I have simple hands that I use to set up the legs. And then I like a few defensive feints. Like most people feint and fake on offense, and I like to set up the fake from defense so that if you hit me and I hit you back, and you hit me and I hit you back the same way, when you hit me, I fake like I'm going to hit you back a different way and change it and try to score a point that way. I love the chess game of Muay Thai, but I'm not that fancy. I'm pretty simple. I've been told I fight economically, so don't waste a lot of energy, don't waste a lot of movement, and try to set up for the one move that's going to yield the maximum results, which for me is usually a kick to the leg, body, or head. Try to end it.
Yeah, I think a defense is just as good, if it's not a better, of an offense. And even in Taekwondo, I see young kids practice. It's always attack, attack. But then after attack, there's the counter attack from the opponent. Sometimes they get you the point. So, I was wondering, a couple of questions that I wrote down here is, I feel like there is that music, there's that tempo and a little dance in what we do as martial artists. So, do you think, what do you do at home, like waiting for the food to come out of the microwave? Do you listen to
shadowboxing constantly? I'm always shadowboxing. I shadowbox in the elevator. I shadowbox. I try to do it subtly when I'm in the subway. I practice footwork a lot. A lot of Muay Thai is how your foot touches the ground and how you can move. So I turn light switches on and off with my feet. And there's definitely a rhythm and a pace, especially in America. A lot of American strikers push, and they're dancing around, especially American kickboxers, bouncing, jumping. But Muay Thai is you take it slow and rhythmic and relax and stalk your opponent, which I really like. I just want to go back to your point about defense. I like that. And I found that, a lot of people attack, but in a way, defense can be almost more demoralizing to your opponent. If someone's attacking you as hard as they can and you're calmly absorbing the shots, it was wild. I saw this fight in Thailand. It was the Russian super heavyweight versus the Thai super heavyweight for the world championship. And the Russian fighter was built more powerfully and much more aggressive than the Thai fighter, and he was pushing and attacking. By the third round, the guy was so tired that when the Thai fighter finally went on offense, he won it easily.
Wow.
And I don't know, sometimes when they said the best offense is a good defense, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And that's a strategy right there. And I think when you compete, strategy isn't, I don't want to say it's everything, but it's such a core component. So how long is the competition? How many rounds do you have, just so I get a sense?
So it's the amateur competition is 3 rounds, 2 minutes each. Pro-am is 3 rounds, 3 minutes each. And a pro fight is 5 rounds, 3 minutes each.
And you're the pro-am?
Pro-am champion, yeah.
I see.
I entered the amateur tournament and I lost in the semifinals against Russia. I have come to accept the loss now. I watched the video and I'm not sure I lost the fight. But, Alexander Limonov, the Russian fighter who beat me, very strong, very good clinch. It was sort of turned into a clinch versus striking match, and it was really close. I lost by, I think, a point. So
it's a political game,
It definitely was, on the international stage. I gotta say, there was something like 40 countries represented, and you see political rivalries. I mean, Russia fought Ukraine. You see fighters from Europe fighting fighters from the Arab world, and the crowd picks sides, and depending on what country the referee is from and the judge, there's all kinds of political stuff. So I definitely tried to not think about that. I mean, a fighter is a fighter, and I think in the ring there's not biases going on, but there's definitely political undertones to international competition for sure.
Absolutely. I think some of my audience might not be as aware of that situation as we are. I'm fully aware, and I think it's really crazy because at that stage, right, people are so close in skill sets and training, and it's at times, yes, I argue it's difficult to judge, but in martial art, it's not so black and white. Unlike running competition, you have a camera, you can see who. Even that, even some competition as black and white as running, you still get into these political debate very easily. And I like your mentality of thinking, being the fighter, going out there, do your best, and have a good time. Mm-hmm. Do you think you're like that all the time?
I don't know. I try not to get too emotionally swayed. When I first started fighting, actually even up into going to Thailand, every fight I would kind of like take it so seriously, which isn't necessarily bad, but it was almost like tensing up and oh my god, it's a kill or be killed situation, even though it's not, but just take it so seriously because I had an undefeated record for a long time and I never wanted to tarnish it. And when I went to Thailand in the amateur tournament, the other American fighters had already been eliminated and I was the last fighter. And I put so much pressure on myself that I don't want to say I didn't have fun because I always have fun, but against Russia, I was thinking in terms of the tournament and thinking there came a point in the fight where I knew I was winning by points and I decided to like strategically try to contain my opponent, and I ended up losing because I didn't try to go for the win. And then later on in the tournament, when I made it to the finals, I just decided, hey, how many times do you make it to the world finals? I should just relax and have fun. And I approached the fight totally differently. And I said, I'm just going to relax and do my thing. And I ended up having a much better fight because I hadn't put the pressure on myself. So definitely it was a lesson learned.
It's so funny. In comparison, even when I go for my colored belted ranks at my school, I get very tense with people watching. I mean, would be 1% of the pressure you're facing. I like, you're clearly a very intelligent guy.
Shucks, thanks.
So I wonder if you study your opponent, and opponents in this case, and challenges of people you've never fought with before, right, at the international stage, never met. But do you study? Do you go to their Wikipedia page? And stuff?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing internationally, and this was I sort of knew this, but I realized it firsthand, is that like a country's culture and personality comes out in the fighter's style, and not in a way to be like stereotypical, but if you look at a Russian fighter or a Brazilian fighter, they're gonna fight in a way that sort of reflects their national style. You take and at the international tournament, one of the things that's interesting is all of the fighters are basically living together and training near each other, and it's 2 weeks long of fights all day every day, from the smallest women to the heaviest men, just going in order all day. So you can go to the stadium and see other teams fight and see other countries, but you might not necessarily know who you're fighting. So in both cases, I didn't see my opponent until a couple minutes before the fight. So most of what I was doing was trying to study the fighters on the team to see if there was a theme that they had. And if in the States, I'll definitely stalk someone as hard as I can. Find
that guy.
Yeah, YouTube videos and but yeah, definitely studying opponents, trying to find strengths and weaknesses. But at against Russia, for example, I didn't see him until a couple minutes before the fight. I happened to look out of the window from where I was training and I saw him warming up, and that's when I made the mental decision to say, okay, this guy is just another guy. Like he's the same as me. He's not like a superhuman or anything. And I knew that all right, we're probably physically matched. How am I going to beat him? And I start to put the game plan together.
Can you study your opponent during the competition? And, you have 3 rounds. Can you study for a couple of minutes and see the behavior and readjust your strategy?
Yeah, definitely. I think traditionally when Thai fighters fight, they go slowly, and the first couple rounds are trying to find the measure of your opponent. And a lot of fighters don't have that approach, and they try to come out as aggressively as possible. So I try to control the pace of the fight early so I can see what the opponent's going to be doing. Is he, can he strike from range? Are his hands better than his legs? Are the elbows a threat? Are the knees a threat? And then I try to look for a pattern and say, all right, if I hit him, how does he hit me back? If I hit him a different way, what does he do? Or what does his offense look like? And then I start to look for, when I can predict his movements in the pattern, then I can counter effectively. But yeah, definitely study. In the States, I always try to study my opponent. And Thailand was definitely a challenge because you have to learn it when you're fighting them for the first time.
And when you were in Thailand, I don't know how many Thai guys are your size. And
not very many. There were actually no Thais in my division. So at my size, 91 kilograms, which is 201 pounds, that the game is much different than would be for like my friend and teammate Julian Nguyen fights 154 pounds. His division was the biggest one in the tournament. So the game is a little different. At the smaller size, speed is a big thing. You see a lot of mobility and agility, and at the heavyweight division, you see a lot more calculation to deliver more power. But yeah, I didn't get to fight any 200-pound Thais. I was looking forward to it.
But I'm looking forward to it. Maybe after the competition.
Yeah.
I was thinking, but when you mentioned Russia or Brazil, and especially Russia, in my opinion, after watching the TV show, one of my favorites called The Americans, it's really about Russian spies, and seeing that guy's probably 150 pounds, that actor, and he kicks so much butt. And I've seen Russian fighters in boxing and kickboxing. They're scary. So I want to make it very clear that they're really good fighters all around the world, even in countries that potentially people haven't even heard of. So that's fascinating. I have another competition related question, is whether in training, I guess separately, training and the competition, what are some of the counterintuitive things you learn about yourself, about training, Because, for example, I'll give you some time to think. Like, sometimes, I remember when I was going from being a red belt to a black belt in Taekwondo, I hit a little bit of a wall. Like, I don't know, when it comes to basics, I feel like I nailed that. But then when I became a black belt, I realized I had to relearn a lot of the very basics. And certain things I did, unpredictably, that made me better, like significantly better. There is that exponential growth. What was that for you?
That's a good question. I find Muay Thai, the system of movements is very simple. It's very, very... There are advanced motions, but for the most part it's very simple. So a lot of times I'll have one mechanic the same way for years, and then someone who maybe I haven't trained with that's looking at me freshly will just make a small adjustment and it will change, turn your hip this way or pivot your foot this way, and all of a sudden it's changed everything. I think counterintuitively, one of the things that helped me go from a sort of plateau was that when I was a couple years in, I had won a bunch of fights, and I had won by TKO, which is like you injure your opponent, and I was fighting with a lot of power. But in my power, I was fighting not very efficiently, because every time I would try to deliver a powerful kick, I would sort of clench all my muscles and hold my breath a little bit and get really tense and deliver a big hit as hard as I could, and then it would use a lot of energy. And some crew, Mark Clem from Bon Muay Thai, actually came back from Thailand and saw me hitting the pads, and I was trying to impress him by hitting it as hard as I could. And he was like, Nate, you look like a crazy person. Like, you're holding, like, just relax. And I relaxed all my muscles, and it turned out that to deliver more power actually takes less strength. You just have to relax and use better technique, which sounds like it makes sense, but at the time, it didn't occur to me that trying as hard as I could didn't make the hit as hard as I could. So that
makes total sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me, because I remember one of the things my instructor, Mr. O'Malley, teaches me is don't clench up at the beginning. You have to really tense your body, everything at the very end.
Or the impact.
Yeah, exactly, when you hit the opponent. And I watch kids, when they tense up at the beginning, and their final execution is actually much weaker than they could have delivered. Interesting. Wow. I want to talk about your upbringing for a second.
Sure.
Because people probably so far have heard this tough guy, probably from a tough neighborhood, but I know that you're not from a tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
I was born in Cambridge, Central Square. Grew up in Newton mostly. Went to Newton North, go Tigers. And then in high school I moved to Framingham when my parents got divorced. Went to school in Pittsburgh, so I bounced around a little bit. I would say, I got into my fair share of scraps when I was little.
You got picked on?
Yeah, I was a lot skinnier.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, those people listening to the podcast, run now.
No, it's all good now. No grudges, but I definitely got pushed around a little bit. But I always loved fighting. I always loved the science of it. So even if I was getting my ass kicked, I would sort of notice, like, all right, I'm getting punched in the eye, but like if I move my hand this way, it sets me up to punch back. And I started to kind of put it together myself. And then once I started to learn, I studied a little bit of Kung Fu, Uechi-ryu karate for a while, where I learned like sparring. And then I learned small circle jiu-jitsu, which is like one of the most brutal street fighting styles. So I worked as a bouncer for a long time, down in Fenway actually. So applying different techniques in street fight sort of helped me understand range, aggression, power versus speed, and multiple opponents at a time. So then once I transitioned to Muay Thai and like really fighting as a competitive art, and then as a professional fighter, it just, the love of the science and the art is what I gravitate towards.
Nice. What do you think some of the influences from other martial arts such as Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu have, sort of changed your game a little bit for Muay Thai, or have they,
I would say range is definitely something, sparring, learning maybe when I was 8 or 10 or 12 or 14 years old. Just simple karate sparring, even though the power is not there. Just seeing what does it look like when someone's coming at you? How does it feel to take a punch to the face? Or just looking for movements, when someone's attacking you, you pick up the movement quicker when you see the muscle in their shoulder twitch or the muscle in the hip twitch. So that kind of helped me not freak out. You can recognize things. And then in terms of like, as a true fighter, as an all-around fighter, and not specifically Muay Thai, like in a street fight, I would use a combination of Muay Thai and small circle jiu-jitsu, because the combination of those two is the most powerful and most brutal. But as a Muay Thai fighter, I would say that just being calm and economical is really what the background gave me.
Yeah, I'm learning a ton here. And so what are your advice, I guess, what are some of the things that you've learned that you would like to advise to other youngsters, whether they're teenagers or they're working adults, professionals, want to consider competing in martial art in general?
Well, I mean, it gives a lot of balance to me. I find, it's a great outlet. And I actually, when I interviewed for the job here at Sapient, Matt Lindley interviewed me, and he skipped my whole resume and went right to the bottom and said, holy shit, Muay Thai champ. And that's what we talked about.
Got you the job.
Apparently got me the job. But it's been great for me. It keeps me in shape. It keeps me accountable. And, before I started fighting, I'm still kind of a lazy athlete in a lot of ways. Like my friends, when I train at the gym, they know that I like to get by with the minimal amount of work. Mm-hmm. And that, but it has made me realize that I can't do that. So I always have to hold myself accountable. And that kind of crosses over to the rest of the world, just even when you try to lie to yourself and say, I'm done, I'm tired, I don't have anything left, you always have something left. When I was in Thailand, I had to cut 14 pounds in 24 hours to make the first tournament weigh-in. And I had the sweatsuit on, and I hadn't eaten, and I was just basically running and jumping rope in the tropical sun. And I had been doing it for hours, and I was like 2 pounds away. And it was, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning, the day of the weigh-ins. And I said to my teammate, Julian, I said, dude, I don't know. I don't think I have anything left. And he was like, dude, you have everything left. Just keep going. And you can always keep going. And that was definitely, you can apply that to anything. So martial arts, if you're trying to get into it, it's amazing. And you got to find the right one for you. But definitely teaches you about what you're capable of.
So push the human limits.
Yeah.
Speaking of that weight loss just now.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to lose the weight like 2 weeks before the competition, but like the day off?
Well, there's several different strategies, and in a way it's sort of a dice roll. So ideally you want to, how do I explain this? So the weigh-in is the day before, or the day the tournament starts, you have to be at weight. And the day of the fight, you have to be at weight. So ideally, you want to be a little bit above the weight, lose it with water, and then rehydrate yourself. So when you step in the ring, you're actually a little bit heavier than the number. So there's pluses and minuses. Some people think if you're fighting at 91 kilograms, you should train to exactly 91 kilograms and you'll be strong and relaxed and like well nourished the day of the fight. Some people, like me, think you should be just a little bit above, sacrifice to get down, and if you can recover quickly, you'll actually be bigger. The downside to that is if you don't play it right and if you don't time it right, then you'll be weaker. If you can't, I'm used to doing it because I've done it for fights in the States, so I can recover and I know what my body takes to do it. But if you time it wrong and you end up losing too much weight or you don't dehydrate correctly, then when you get in the ring to fight, you'll be dehydrated and stiff and probably lose. I got lucky because the tournament bracket was drawn randomly, and I was gambling that as a heavyweight, I was going to be towards the end of the schedule of fights. So I would have time to lose the weight for the first weigh-in, then train down while still getting higher cardio, and then cut again. And it just happened that I was perfectly timed to be recovered for the times of the fight. So it paid off for me. But it was definitely 14 pounds in 24 hours is definitely
not easy, huh?
Not easy. That was a serious challenge. I was running on the beach at like 4 a.m. in a sauna suit. But it got to the point where I knew exactly what point I'd have to run to lose exactly how much weight. So on the final weight cut, I knew if I ran 5 miles away to the beach and back, that I would be exactly on point. So physically challenging for sure.
Definitely. And what is the lifespan of Muay Thai? And I guess that's another way to ask you the question is how long do you want to be in this competition? How long do you see yourself?
You know, I just turned, I'm about to turn 31. And I've been asking myself that question. I don't feel old. I feel powerful.
You're not old. Let me just clarify.
Oh, thank you.
I'm the same age. So.
I don't feel beat up or anything. I feel like my style has changed as I've gotten older, and I've relied less on agility and more on strategy. But I still feel powerful. The international cutoff for tournament competition is 35. And you know, I've thought about stopping, but the thing is, when I don't train, I don't know, I'm like agitated. I need the outlet. And people, when you're a fighter and you won a couple titles, people are aware of you and they know that you're out there, so they gun for you, kind of. So if I go to a fight, people know not necessarily who I am, but they know I have a title, and I feel a certain responsibility that if I have the title, I should be ready to defend it. And I don't plan on losing it. So as long as I have it, I'm going to try to be ready for it to at least a certain extent. You know, then once there's a fight on the schedule, I go crazy. But I never want to be at the point where I sort of stop, because, let me put it this way, I'm going to keep doing it as long as I love the art. And I still love the art, so...
When that point comes, for all of us, and whether, you know, just changes happen in life and you could have other pursuits as well, do you think you'd be interested in training other people as a coach, or?
Definitely. I have been sort of working for my membership for the team. Part of that means that you help out as a teacher or you hold pads. And I've been training some fighters. So I love doing it. The only downside to it is that it takes time away from my own training. So I love teaching people, and I love to give like little hints that they can then use and watch them get better. But then it's sort of like when you're teaching someone else, you can't get better yourself. So I like it. I need to find the balance, exactly.
So we're running just a little bit out of time. It's almost like noon exactly. I want people to really learn about you, and I want people, whether they work in agency, consulting, finance, law firms, to know that you could have other pursuits outside of work. You know, for me, it's podcasting, for you, Muay Thai. And I want, what are some of the channels, outlets that people can learn more about you, follow you?
Actually, this is kind of cool. When I was there on the way out of the building, Matt Lindley said, you know, we should really put a GoPro on your head or something while you're going there.
Go Matt.
And well, I said, you know, a friend of mine lives in Bangkok and he's a film producer. You know, what's it going to cost to get a camera for a couple days? And, you know, the Thai rate is much lower. So we ended up having a film crew in bed with the team for the whole tournament. And we produced a documentary that's coming out, I think, in January. It's called Under the Lights in Thailand.
Nice.
I'll send you the link for the trailer. But definitely check that out. It's got some sick Muay Thai footage in there, some awesome fights, some great knockouts. And you get to see kind of what we did for the international tournament. I have a couple fights on YouTube you can check out.
And I will make those YouTube videos and the trailer if I can share on the blog post. I will do that.
Sure.
And what about Facebook, Twitter? I know you're pretty active there.
Yeah, you know, at DJ Detonate on Twitter. You know, do the DJ thing, run Cut and Class Records. Yeah, just Nate Delong on Facebook. Hit me up.
Yeah, and you have a fan page?
Not actually. I don't have a fighter fan page. I don't know. Fighting sort of became. It's like just. It's a thing that I do that I love, but it's not like my public face, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You still want to be you.
Yeah.
Awesome. This was super fun. Thank you so much for.
Thanks for having me, Faye. This was awesome.
To listen to more episodes of the Feisworld podcast, please subscribe on iTunes or visit feisworld.com. That is FEISWORLD, where you can find show notes, links, other tools, and resources. You can also follow me on Twitter at Feisworld. Until next time, thanks for listening.